Welcome to Tech Notice, my friends. Over here we have a PC that is really loud. I'm sure you can hear it. All the fans sound like I'm hoovering this office right now. Now, if you haven't seen the video how we built this, then, go check it out. But there is 5 fans in here, 1 in the bottom, 2 in the front, and then like 1 on the top and then 1 in the back. So there's 5 fans. And in this video, we're going to be showing you how to tune your fans, and if you have an editing PC, how to make it sound less like this and more work quietly without compromising any of the cooling properties. So let's get right into it. One of the first things we're going to do is we're going to actually turn the computer off, because we need to do something before we can turn it. So as you can hear, when it goes off, it's going to switch to quieter, but that is much better, much quieter. Depends which PC you have. You might need to configure some of the fans and things like that, because some of the PCs or the cases that come with it have this kind of, there is like this control box, and this is called the NZXT cam, like a control box where you connect your fans into it. So I have 3 fans that you can connect into it, but one of them is actually split into 3, and the 3 are the front fans on here. So we have 2 fans in the front, as you can see, and then we have 1 in the bottom, but them 2 fans are connected to a fan splitter, which is over here. Also, the bottom fan that is sucking air from the bottom is in the same splitter. The thing is, I have found that the bottom fan is way too loud when it reaches very high RPM. Just how it's placed over there, it makes a lot of noise. So I'm gonna configure it, or want to configure that it's never gonna hit like 100% of its maximum capacity, because it's just too loud. So what you can do is, if you have the control box, and you have to use it. But I always like to use the motherboard, because then there's just one thing less to go wrong. If you can, connect all your fans into the motherboard, unless you have like a massive RAD system. You've got loads of fans, like one of the Lee cases where there's loads of fans and you connect them all together, and then you want to configure them all at the same time. If you have just fans all over the place, just connect them all into the motherboard, one of the system fan ports, and then you're sorted. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to figure out which one of them is the bottom fan, and then we're going to put it into the motherboard, one of the system fans ports. Okay, now I have figured out which one this is. Also, another tip is, when you're working in a PC, it's good to turn it off from the back and then turn it back on once you are not working on it anymore. So if you have done that, hit that power button again. And then now, as soon as anything comes on, start hitting delete on the keyboard, because we want to go into the BIOS settings. Now, with this fan configuration, how I'm doing, some of them we're going to configure on BIOS, and some of them we're actually going to configure in the actual cam software once we've actually loaded the Windows. Now, if you can, I always kind of prefer to do it on BIOS instead of the software, because then there is one thing less to go wrong. If it's already BIOS, it's constantly running on the fan curves or the right fan curves, so that is good. So you don't have to wait for your BIOS, your actual OS system to load up when you're doing your fan curves and things like that. So over here we are in the BIOS now, and depends which BIOS you have. So different motherboard have different, but basically it all works on the actual same type of thing. There is somewhere where you can adjust the fan curves. So let's have a look. We're probably gonna want to go to, there is somewhere where you can go to advanced mode. When you go to advanced mode, see, there we go. In my BIOS settings, it is actually when I go to PC monitoring, and then we have a fan tuning over here. Okay, in here, this is quite an annoying BIOS to actually see the fan curves, because as you can see, there's like different, temperature 1, temperature 2, 3, 4, there's like 4 points in the curve, and then you have to adjust them manually, like what this would be. So we're not going to do this on the BIOS, we're just going to do everything on the actual software when we were in the OS, because this is just confusing to even explain and to show you. But for some of the advanced guys, you know how this works. You're going to set your temperature, first temperature, let's say, at when the CPU hits 30 degrees, as you can see. So if your system fan, this is the monitor or motherboard or CPU, whatever, you can see that temperature 1, 30 degrees, and then it's gonna hit how many percentage of the fan, 20%. When it hits 370, it's 100 and 100, but this is not very good. We're gonna go exit, discard changes and exit setup. Yes, we're gonna do exit. So on this motherboard, the BIOS setting is very confusing, but on your motherboard, some of the settings might not be that confusing. If you go to fan system curves, fan curves, you'll find very similar settings to what I'm going to show you in the actual OS there. So once you are in your OS system over here, what you want to do is open up the software that controls your motherboard. As you can hear, the fans already have gone down because now I am on here. Now this NZXT cam is the software that controls the fans and anything that's connected to the motherboards. It's like basically like a motherboard software. So if you have MSI, Gigabyte, Aorus, Asus, whatever motherboard, all of the motherboards have a software controlling some of these things. So if you don't know how to download or get this software, just type in your motherboard name, whether you're Intel or AMD or whatever motherboard you have, go on the manufacturer's site and download the software that you can do stuff with. But on this NZXT cam, if you have NZXT motherboards, then you can do this, but they all work very similarly. Once we're in here now, what we want to do is there is smart devices over here. You see there's fan connector 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the motherboard, and then we have the smart devices. Now smart devices are the things that are connected to this software on the back over there. Now when you click on the actual fan, then you can see like what we're doing over there. But I just want to see which one is this fan over here, okay? Let me just put everything 100% so I can figure out which fan is this. If you don't know which fans are which, what you can do is, it's supposed to be this one, but because the top two fans here are connected, so I'm gonna name these 120 plus 140 front fans. Okay, and then these are like custom now. There is different presets that you can go, but the custom, this is what we want to do. So basically there's loads of points over here, and until like it is actually like 60 degrees, I don't mind if those fans are hardly working. Okay, let's put them to like 20%. 20%, they're working all the way until it's 55 degrees somewhere over here. When it hits 60 degrees, they're working 60%. Okay, and then when they hit 70 degrees, that's getting on a bit. We are hitting, let's make this a bit smoother. So between 65, they're about 60. They're at 75% when they're 70 degrees. When it hits 80 degrees, that's when it gets a bit toasty. I want them to hit 92%. When they're 85 degrees, then both of the front fans hit 100%, okay? If you don't know what temperature or motherboard or what temperatures you should be hitting or where does it get a bit like dangerous basically, then AMD, for example, is about 95 degrees. That is the maximum temperature. So you don't want to hit max like 95 degrees ever, because it starts to like throttle the CPU, and slightly a little bit before as well. On Intel, I think it's slightly higher, maybe 100 degrees. Don't quote me on that, but around 95 degrees. So if our CPU runs around 70 degrees, it's completely fine. Around 80 degrees CPU, that's when it's getting a little bit like, come on, let's cool this thing down. So now, because of that, when we are at 80 degrees, we're running 92%. So, you know, it's almost maximum what is going to cool these front ones over here. They're going to push exactly on the AIO radiator, and then they're going to push this like air through, right? These front fans, they're configured. Now, this is back exhaust fan. Now, I'm not sure if it is, so let me just pull all of these down and see if it stops. Yep, let's see how it works with 100%. How much noise does this make? A little bit, not too much. So I'm happy if this is around 25% until we're around 60 degrees. When we're 60 degrees, we'll hit 50, 70, or 75. Let's make it a bit smoother here. And then when we are 75 degrees, we're 90, and 80 is 100. Basically, AIO pump is basically the same as fan. It's just like a pump inside that spins and things like that. So our AIO pump hits 100% when we're hitting 65, which I'm completely fine. I'm just gonna leave it to performance. In fact, I'm actually gonna change it slightly so that there's like a smoother transition. So no problem. Yep, nothing's plugged into CPU fan, so we're gonna leave that one to silent. Fan connector 1. Let's have a look. We're gonna go to fixed and turn it up. See which fan it is. That is our bottom fan over there. 75% is roughly the maximum I want this to hit. 50% is very quiet. Like I can't hear it when it's working on 50%. So what I want to do is I want it constantly to work actually quite a lot, because it's not making any noise. I want it to pull in quite a lot of cold air, because the more cold air it pulls in silently, the less the other fans are going to turn up, because the whole CPU is going to be cooler. So I'm going to just have it, I'm going to hear it where it's going to be at some point that is just like the maximum. Yeah, around 47%. I can't hear it, so I constantly let it suck in some cool air from the from the bottom over there. Let's make so that all of this is around there until it hits 85 degrees, right? Let's make it 80. When it's 80, it goes to 75. When it's 90 degrees, I don't really want it to go any higher, but when it hits 95 degrees, it's gonna go 100%, okay? So just when it's absolutely getting heated up, then this is gonna go maximum speed as well, but all up until that point, it's not gonna hit that. It's just gonna stay at 75%. In fact, even on 80, just let it slowly curve up. Okay, so I'm quite happy with this front bottom intake, 120 millimeters. I figured out if you wanna rename them, you just have to hit enter. And then I'm gonna put all of these silent so I know these aren't working. Number 5 is our top exhaust fan from the top. Let me figure out what's the speed that it runs without making too much noise. Let's put it to 75. So we're gonna tune this one backwards. So now 75, I'm quite happy with that. So let it hit 75 when we're around 65 degrees. And then before that, we're gonna keep it to, let me see if we can turn it to 50. Yeah, 50 degrees. I'm gonna pull this even a bit further down. When it's 40 degrees, it doesn't need to exhaust anything. When it's 30 degrees, when it's less than 20, I just want it to be completely zero. You know, when it hits 30 degrees CPU, it might actually stop working. When it's 30 degrees, it starts going slowly up. When it's 40, it's 40%. And then when it's around 50 degrees, it's 50%. And then it hits 75% when we're around 65 because it doesn't make too much noise. Now, when we hit around 85, I'm gonna make it go higher because there's a lot of hot air in the top gathered around there, and I want it all to be pushed out from the top over here. So that's what it's wanna do, 140 millimeters. Now, all of this has been done now. I'm gonna show you how this works as well, so you can actually see them turn up and turn down and things like that. I'm gonna open hardware monitor as well, so you can see exactly the temperatures of all this different cores. Okay, so now I have Cinebench over here, Cinebench multi-core over here, and I'm gonna put the minimum test, I'm gonna put it 10 minutes because then the CPU is actually starting to heat up. Right, I'm gonna press start, and then now I'm gonna get these up so you can see it very easily how it works. Just keep an eye here on the temperatures. Look at this, you can see utilization goes 100% over here, and then we've hit like quite a bit, 80 degrees, 90 degrees. It's gonna kick out up, and then it's gonna cool down. As you can see, it's not as loud as even before it was running. We're running around 80 degrees, 70 degrees, because it's 100% utilization. It uses all what the CPU can do, and we're running quite quiet without actually clocking up. We're like 80, 85 degrees, something like that. So it needs cooling, but it's not heating up either, if you know what I mean. Some of the cores peak a little bit up or down. It's gonna do it again and again. As you can see, we're doing pretty good cooling over there. And it's not that loud because the bottom fan is not kicking up so fast anymore. Look at that, 100% utilization, 60 something, 70 degrees. How good is that? Obviously when it's starting again, it might peak up a little bit and then wait for the fans to kick in, and then it's gonna stabilize it again. Look at that, we're running 70 degrees over here, but it's probably because the clock speeds have now gone down to 4.5 gigahertz. As you can see, when it's 4.5 gigahertz, all utilization 100%, we are running at 60, less than 70 degrees on all clock speeds. That is absolutely fantastic. Now, let me put all the case panels on again as well, and then we're gonna see if that changes anything, because obviously at the moment it's open case, but that's not usually what it is. Now, the intake is slightly more, restricted because it can't take in as much air as it wants. There's only this side panel over here now, and then on the bottom panel where it comes in and then just exhausts out the rest of it. But look at that. Okay, we probably gained maybe 5 degrees Celsius now because this is on, but we're still running. Look at this, clock speeds, 4.5 gigahertz, and all cores are less than 75 degrees, in the lower 70s and in late 60 or end of 60 degrees. That is absolutely fantastic. Look at that, CPU temperature 70 degrees here says overall. This is how you can tune your fan speeds, and this is how I would do it. Hopefully this helped you and give you a little tips or tricks if you want to do your own or tune your fan speeds, because now you can get your PC to be quieter when you're editing. Well, also gaming, it can be quieter. Gaming, it might be a little bit different, and it doesn't compromise any of the performance of the computer because, as you can see, it's much quieter and it's completely fine. Let me know if that helped you. Hit that like button if you did, it actually make a difference. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. If you haven't seen this PC build, feel free to check it out. See you soon, guys. Bye bye.